Hey, what's going on everyone? I'm Rob Richards. I'm back here at Mission Fitness Center, an awesome gym in Alhambra, California. And the focus of today's video is twofold. We're gonna be looking at biceps and triceps, not so much exercises, but more corrective and prevention towards getting things like, tennis elbow or that little niggle in your bicep, which typically flares up when I perform exercises like a barbell curl, hammer curl, skull crushers, one of my favorites, but unfortunately really feel it on the tricep, dips. So I have three solutions that we're gonna mix in with today's workout. We're gonna be looking at an effective warm-up. We're gonna be looking at modifications and variations to each of those four exercises. And three, we're gonna take a closer look at something like this, a compression sleeve, which has these really cool kind of silicone strips in that provide both tension and adhesion to the area that we're training. So three great solutions there. Let's kick things off with an awesome warm-up. So let's get to it. Okay, so why is it so important to have the right warm-up? Well, this is really solution number one of our three-part video, and that is focusing on the particular areas of the body, the muscles and joints and ligaments that we're gonna be working within whatever workout you're doing. Today, biceps and triceps. So I've got a few mobility type movements, stretches, and warm-up type exercises that I found over the years just really hit that point of addressing the insertion area of the bicep just here. If I roll this down, this area here of the bicep, and then if we turn around the triceps, especially here, all around the elbow. And you may have noticed when doing exercises such as the skull crushers or barbell curls, you kind of get a pain around this area, and it can limit you from either going heavier or it just turns you off from the exercise altogether. So these warm-up mobility movements I found really do the job at sort of preparing your body for what's to come. So let's break it down step by step. First, biceps. Now, the first one we're doing is, I call it a Superman roll. We're laying flat, and whether we're using a foam roller or one of the hardened foam rollers, the goal is to get flat, place your bicep just on that roller, and then move your body over it. Now, you can use a fixed barbell, but I like the fact that the roller is moving under the arm, and it allows me to rotate my arm laterally left and right as I'm rolling over. It can be a little bit painful if you're not used to this kind of movement, but just keep the pressure light, and over time start to apply greater and greater pressure. Once you've kind of gone through the motions on that, give this one a try. Use a barbell. We're gonna lay flat, and you can see I've actually got the barbell positioned over my foot with my other knee resting over the barbell. And the reason for that is I can apply as much pressure as I feel I need to, or ease off of that pressure. The end of the barbell is then resting just on the edge of my bicep, and I'm using my free hand, my right arm in this case, to then roll that barbell, the collar, over the bicep, a little bit of the forearm, and again, rotating my arm as I do so. This is a great sort of pre-warm-up and a post-exercise kind of lactic acid clearing type movement. Give it a try if you haven't yet already. The second one we do for biceps is with a resistance band, and I'm applying pressure at the elbow, so I'm effectively stretching the bicep both ways. I've got resistance pulling from behind, and then I turn my hand around and I'm fighting that resistance with that band pulling the opposite way. This is similar to doing, remember the old hands down on the bench and kind of a stretch. The difficulty with that one is I could never quite feel how much pressure I'm putting through on my bicep. More of that comes from the wrist. So eliminating that and replacing it with a resistance band, perfect, love that one. Third one for biceps, grab a pair of dumbbells, keep them super light. You don't want too heavy here. We're just gonna internally and externally rotate at the wrists, trying to keep our elbows fixed, even without weights. It's just a great warm-up for the biceps before we even start our first exercise. And then moving on with triceps, we have an overhead tricep stretch using the resistance band. And you can see I kind of hook my hand in, rotate it externally to be able to hold on to the sides. And then it's already pulling me down from the wrist, so giving me a great stretch down that long head. If I want, I can just apply a little bit more pressure by pushing on my elbow, but it keeps constant tension on the tricep. And then the final one, back with that barbell, we're gonna roll our arm as we roll that barbell. So kind of like a conveyor belt, we're turning and bending, flexing at the elbow. You also see that I then hold onto my wrist and I'm doing a kind of a 360 rotational movement. That is great if you feel any pain there. And give this a try before you do any tricep exercises. Before we even get onto our main tricep presses, overhead extensions, dips or skull crushers, you feel that that tension or pain starts to ease from there. So that's the first part of this video, an effective warm-up. And I'm not just talking about getting on a treadmill or a rower for a few minutes. Sure, that can be good to kind of get the blood pumping around the body, which is also needed. But I find more importantly, it's to awaken, unstick, and really activate all of the muscle fibers, especially around the insertion and the origin of the muscle groups that we're trying for. Ton more information in the description below, so if you want to go through and check back any of these, I've also time coded all of the exercises. So if you're wondering which one I'm talking about, just check the description. You can see the exact time code. Click on it, the video pops up in that exact spot. Okay, let's move on to our kind of focus number 2, and that is changes or modifications in the exercises. So let's go take a look, starting off with biceps. So for our first exercise, barbell curls, I switched from the traditional barbell curl, which you'll have seen, there's a lot of momentum and swaying in the arm. So what typically happens is, whereas this motion, it's really just the bicep activating, look, we like to push some heavy weight. Naturally, our arms come forwards a little bit. Anterior deltoid starts to take a roll, but also what happens is, as we bring the weight down, we start to hyperextend at that joint. So what feels the wrath of that? It's the bicep tendon. Even under pressure, there's still a lot of tension, great tension coming through here. And if we add some momentum into that and at the bottom, that can really start to aggravate any pain or underlying issues you have around this region. So besides the actual compression sleeves, which we'll get onto, I found that by lowering the weight, yes, you heard me, taking off some of the weight, but this really maximizes the involvement of just that bicep. So by leaning up against something, whether it's a wall, we've got a good kind of mid waist high pad, anything that allows you to put basically the back of the lower arms where the elbows are and support them. Now, we don't need to go all the way down, and in fact that's good because we're not allowing that muscle to overextend. The bar can only come down to our thighs, or if we stand up, we have near enough a full stretch. The benefit of performing it this way is that it keeps our arm perfectly in that position and limits us from kind of rocking back and forth. So by dropping the weight down, easing the bar on that negative eccentric, and then as we squeeze up, all of that effort is on that bicep. So even by dropping the weight from 50 pounds plus the bar down to just 25 pounds, I get a much greater contraction in my bicep. And really, that's what this is all about. It's about the effort, the work done, and maximizing that contraction in the muscle, more so than just trying to be able to move the heaviest weight, because often more muscle groups are involved to facilitate that movement. So give this a try. Strip the weight down, start with a lighter weight, support the back of the arms, go for a full range of motion, but have it controlled, smooth, and consistent. And man, let me tell you, the bicep pump you get from something like this, I'll take this all day long over trying to move some heavy weight on the barbells. Okay, let's move on, have a look at exercise number 2 for biceps. Exercise number 2, hammer curls. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever performed a hammer curl, and there's a few different variations, but sort of a crossbody hammer curl, get a great pump in the biceps, but have you ever felt that pain around the elbow, especially in sort of the upper forearm region there? That's a real sort of, I call it a niggle. It just niggles me for the rest of the workout, limits any of the other movements that I can do. And so, you know, for the past year or two, I've just tended to stay away from movements like that. But we can kind of work around it and offer a different variation of this exercise, and that is what we're doing here with this incline bench. So this movement is a bit of a hybrid. It's sort of a single arm concentration curl, but it's also a hammer curl. And what we're doing is using the incline bench. This is a 45-degree set angle. Lean over and really just get the pit of the arm at the top of the bench. You want to use a towel or paper towel, but therefore our whole arm is hanging, supported. And when we do this now, I don't feel as much pain there, mainly because when I'm upright, the bicep, so the short head and the long head especially, which comes up through here, is under a lot of pressure because I'm having to keep that upright and help stabilize it. This way, my arm is free just to hang, so that movement there is literally only my bicep now having to do the work. This shoulder muscle is, I mean, it's not even tensed. So that slight difference can make a huge impact on how you perform and how that muscle works. Let me just say that again. Performing it this way, my shoulder muscle isn't even contracting. I can kind of pull it out there and still do that. To show you the inverse of that, if I'm doing it here, this shoulder muscle now is having to do a lot more work. It's having to support that whole arm. So there's a chain effect, a knock-on effect, that if I'm doing this, I start to feel a pain here, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna feel something in my shoulder too. So that's why I found that by performing on the bench, whether it's a straight hammer curl, whether you wanna add a rotation in, once again, we're focusing exclusively just on that bicep and limiting any involvement of that shoulder, therefore minimizing that chain reaction coming down from that long head and affecting around that shoulder joint there. So give this a try. Even with the same weight, we don't need to drop the weight on this one. Go as heavy as you can, make sure you get a full contraction, ease down slowly on that eccentric, and then repeat on the other arm. That's biceps done. Now let's head over and switch our focus to the back of the arm, triceps, and check out how we can minimize, again, that sort of issue that can start to flare up around our elbow joint. So follow me and let's get started on the first of our tricep exercises. First of our tricep exercises, and we're taking a look at an alternative to the SkullCrusher. A short Olympic bar. I got two 15K plates on the end. That's a decent amount of weight. Now, when I'm laying down, the problem I find with SkullCrushers is that my elbows tend to flare out, even if I try and keep them rotated in. And it's a lot of weight based on how the arm moves. That weight starts to come back. It's really pulling my arm back. I'm having to stabilize and keep my arm in that position. And again, a lot of that stress comes through my elbow. Is it a great mass building exercise? Yes. Is it the one that makes me feel pain around my elbow the most? Also yes. So how do we correct this? Well, an exercise I've been doing for years, and quite frankly, prefer it over the SkullCrushers, is a seated single arm overhead extension. Let me say that again, a single seated overhead extension. Basically, I just have my arm up. I'm using a lighter weight, mimicking that same movement, but check this out. My arm is already in that flared position, as opposed to a SkullCrusher like this. I'm taking my arm out, following a much easier motion for my arm. And even though I'm have 25-pound dumbbells here, just 10, 12 reps really gives me a pump in the tricep. It's also one of the exercises that I would look at finishing off, or just gives a really nice shape to the tricep. So we're gonna have a look at another tricep movement next, but this is one that I would typically save towards the end of my workout. Plus, by working on each arm independently, I can really stress that muscle to its maximum without always relying on the more dominant side, which we always have one. For me, it's my right side. So if I'm doing a barbell, my right side will work a little bit harder, my left side will kind of fall back a little bit. So I have these inconsistencies as well, which is another factor that can lead to inflammation, pain, and just issues all over from our shoulders, elbows, even down to the wrist and our back based on how we position ourselves. So let's eliminate all of that. Sit upright or lean back against the bench in an upright position, arm up, and then really I'm just extending the full arm, squeezing that tricep, lowering the weight down just enough so I've got about a 90-degree angle here. That's gonna be really key, especially for our next exercise, not to kind of overextend and then have to work through that. So that 90-degree angle is all you need to really maximize the contraction, the involvement of that tricep. Perform each arm, give yourself a little rest, jump right back into it. And don't worry too much about the weight on this one. I'd rather you push a few more reps on each set. So if you start at 10 reps, aim for 12 or 15 reps on the next one using the same weight, and then try and bump it up to 18 or 20 reps. That's gonna be a real challenge, gives a great pump in the tricep and eliminates a lot of the pressure off from the elbow. All right, let's go check out our final exercise of this video, and it's another tricep master blaster. Take a look. All right, so what's the deal with tricep dips or parallel bar dips? Well, they put a lot of pressure, surprise, surprise, through the elbow joint. So that tennis elbow pain that people talk about, sort of around this region here, which is typically the tendons, ligaments from the muscle and the bone, which is where you feel the pain. Now, I showed you early on that mobility movement on the Olympic barbell. That one is great for directly working there. But what about the actual movement itself of the dips? Well, if we break it down, it is a great exercise, but it also puts a lot of load over the front shoulder, puts our arm pretty much in line with our body. We're having to put a lot of pressure through just to raise our body weight up. So an alternative to that is performing bench dips. Basically, we're gonna bring our arms from the side of our body to behind, puts our arms in a much more safer position, I feel. And even with body weight, you can still get a fantastic pump in the triceps. Plus you can add plates or a weight, whatever it might be, onto your lap with your legs stretched out to increase the resistance. Tons of variations with this, but the main thing is I just feel it's so much easier on my wrists and elbow, positioning my hands and therefore my arms behind my body rather than on the bench. A couple of other points here. The range of motion. So whether I'm doing dips on the parallel bar or the bench, I always want to make sure that my elbow doesn't go above the shoulder. Even though our body can do that, if we're adding resistance and putting extra weight through that, it just opens up the possibility for increasing any inflammation or injury around that joint and the shoulder as well. The shoulder is a very nimble joint. It can do a lot of things, but it's also opens you up for a lot more potential for injury. So we want to limit that. Bench, behind the back dips, great exercise, great pump on the arms. In fact, you might even want to start off with this one, then move on, do your cable press downs, your kickbacks, and your overhead extensions. 4 great tricep exercises there. But as far as exercises, those would be my 4 go-to variations for hitting the biceps pain-free and the triceps pain-free. So I mentioned I'll be looking at 3 options today to reduce pain and inflammation, especially around the arms. We've looked at an effective warm-up, we've looked at modification, variations of exercises. The third one, I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about these compression sleeves. Now, as you can see, these aren't your typical compression sleeve, much like compression tights are. They just kind of wrap tightly around the body. What we've got here is, this is actually a completely new garment that I've been really fortunate to have tried on for at least the last month. And you'll have noticed, if you follow me on my social media, Instagram especially, you'll have seen me wearing these and different variations of these for at least the past month. So I really do use them in all of my workouts, certainly concerning arms, whether I'm pushing, pulling, or lifting, working the arms directly. So what these are silicone strips, and if I turn this one completely inside out, the benefit here is that just like certain tapes that you apply to the muscle to provide certain tension and pressure where you need, these have it already kind of strategically applied. Now the benefit of this is when I put it on, not only is it applying some pressure onto certain areas of where the muscles are, but it adds some compression and pressure as well. So with these forearm sleeves, you can see the V actually goes on the inside of the forearm. And if I peel it down here, you can see where all of the silicone strips are that kind of move and flex with the muscles. Sometimes I'll change that around, so I've got the V on the outside of my arm, depending on what I'm doing, like hammer curls, for example. So it's really wherever you need that adhesion and the compression the most. Another benefit of these is that this is from a company called WaveWear. You see the little logo there. They've got a few options. Full ones around the elbow, hits more the arms. They've got one specifically for the calves and the legs and around the knees. Like I said, the silicone part works kind of like the kinesiology taping. And the silicone doesn't lose any adhesion after washing. So what's great is you can put them on, train, wash them when they get dirty or a little bit of sweat, and then put them back on without losing any of that tension. It also saves you money by not having to keep reusing tape every time that you train. And if you know anything about silicone, it's still sticky after you wash it. So you don't have to throw any of those tapes away. You can just keep reusing these sleeves, wash them after use, put them back on, they're good to go. If you want to find out more about what these are, the benefits that they can offer, how you can get a pair, I've included all the information plus a video specifically about these in the description, along with all of the exercises, all of the time codes, all of the warm-up, mobility, movements. It's all in the description below. So, spend a couple of minutes, check on that, go back within this video, watch them, and implement some of these mobility warm-ups, exercise modifications. And if you have any pain around the elbow, shoulder, knees, ankles, give these a try. WaveWear. Like I said, another benefit is even if I'm sweating my ass off, my arm doesn't stick. Granted, I haven't been sweating too much today, but these sort of non-slip silicone pads really are great. Plus I can just keep them in my gym bag, pull them on when I train. I don't have to worry about applying any tape over certain areas that I may not be able to reach. Plus I can just take them on and off as when I need them. So ton more information on the Kickstarter campaign and a link directly to WaveWear, so you can find out directly about getting some sleeves, some compression sleeves for arms, calves, elbows, knees, whatever your issue might be. I'm working with them. We're going to provide some great content to allow you to move away from pain and really just focus on your training. So that about does it for today's video. Like I said, a little bit different from a kind of a workout focused video, more focused on addressing some issues that I've noticed myself over the years, as I'm sure some of you have. But let's keep this discussion going. Leave a comment below if you've got any suggestions, topics, ideas that you want us to be able to incorporate into these videos, whether they're workouts, whether you've got some issues with certain joints or muscle parts that you want to have a look at. Instagram, Twitter, I'm active on them all. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Check out, I've got at least the past 10 years worth of videos. Just search my name along with the master group and subscribe, hit that notifications button. We've got videos coming every couple of weeks. So I'll be back here in the gym, Mission Fitness Center, Alhambra, California. If you're around the area, Alhambra, just outside of downtown Los Angeles, come down, check it out. You don't need a membership, you can pay a day pass, or if you come on a Friday, it's about $5. So some really awesome equipment in here for powerlifting, weight training, bodybuilding, physique training, health and wellness, you name it, we can do it here. So until then, I'm gonna wrap this up. Stay motivated, keep working at it. It's about that work mentality. You've got to put it in to be able to reap the rewards. I've been doing this for a good 16, 18 years now. So if you're just starting out, you know, you've got a lot of success ahead. That's how I like to think about it. So on that note, I'll be back here soon. Give me a follow on Instagram. Let's connect. Let's keep this information going, and I'll see you real soon. Take care.